हरे कृष्णा। हरि बोल धर्म नाम आप सभी को। आप सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत है, हार्दिक अभिनंदन है शास्त्र संज्ञा के इस नवदा भक्ति सीरीज में। राइट। सो हम रिज्यूम कर रहे हैं सीरीज। राइट। एंड हमारे सीरीज के अगर आपने नोटिस किया हो तो 4 सेशंस निकल चुके हैं। श्रीमद् भागवतम के 7th कैंटो 5th चैप्टर वर्स 23 के सेंट्रिक ये सीरीज रिवॉल्व कर रही है। इट इज रिवॉल्विंग अराउंड दिस श्लोक। श्रवणम कीर्तनम विष्णुम स्मरणम पाद सेवनम अर्चनम वंदनम दास्यम साख्यम आत्मनिवेदनम। सो in exactly the middle of this shlok we have archanam, right? Archanam, that is keeping together the previous four and the four to come, right? We have archanam in between. So how is archanam going to make things stick together, right? It's a very interesting topic, right? It is a goal that one should that one should definitely have in their spiritual bucket list. One should thrive to go towards that destination as well. So आज आप सभी के समक्ष, आप सभी के बीच, राइट, आई वुड लव टू इंट्रोड्यूस, ये मेरा सौभाग्य है कि गोविंद जी इज़ वेरी 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 मर्सीफुल। श्री राधा गोविंद देव आर वेरी मर्सीफुल कि शास्त्र संज्ञा के इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे इतने वरिष्ठ वैष्णव आते हैं। So before, in our midst, we have a very senior Vaishnavi, right? We have Her Grace Kasturika Mataji, right? हम सबकी के बीच कस्तूरिका माताजी हैं जो अभी वृंदावन धाम में निवास कर रही हैं। I would like to give a very brief, though I will not be able to do justice with this introduction, but I will nevertheless definitely give an attempt. तो जो कस्तूरिका माताजी हैं वो भगवान श्री कृष्ण कॉन्शियसनेस से संपर्क में आई थी ऑस्ट्रेलिया में व्हेन शी वाज परस्यूइंग हर मास्टर्स डिग्री, राइट? सो व्हेन शी वाज परस्यूइंग हर मास्टर्स डिग्री तो फिर इन हर कैंपस देयर वर सम यूनिवर्सिटी प्रोग्राम्स ऑफ ISKCON, राइट? एंड शी अटेंडेड वन ऑफ दोज प्रोग्राम्स एंड देयर इज दिस जर्नी फ्रॉम मेलबर्न टू वृंदावन, राइट, वेयर शी केम इन कॉन्टैक्ट ऑन हर यूनिवर्सिटी campus with devotees and she got hinged, right, to Krishna. So जो कस्तूरिका माता जी हैं वो परम पूजनीय हिज होलीनेस देवामित स्वामी महाराज की निजी शिष्य हैं। शी इज़ माई गॉड सिस्टर, राइट? वो मेरी गुरु बहन है, मुझसे बहुत वरिष्ठ हैं, बहुत सीनियर हैं। एंड मेलबर्न में भी जब वो थी तो फिर वो बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एंड जो वेस्टर्न आउटरीच प्रोग्राम्स हैं उसमें बहुत भाग लेती हैं माता जी, राइट? एंड शी इज़ वेरी मच फॉन्ड ऑफ टेम्पल सर्विसेज अलॉन्ग विद प्रीचिंग सर्विसेज। अगर आप कभी इस्कॉन वृंदावन जाएं, राइट, सबसे पहले आप श्रील प्रभुपाद के समाधि मंदिर में जाके दर्शन करते हैं एंड फिर आप वहाँ से निकलकर, दर्शन द्वार से निकलकर साइड द्वार की तरफ सीधे चलते हैं एंड लेफ्ट साइड पे आपके एक बुक शॉप मिलेगी आपको, राइट? यू विल फाइंड माताजी ओवर देयर डूइंग सेवा, राइट? तो ISKCON वृंदावन में जो बुक शॉप है वहाँ पर भी मैंने बहुत बार माताजी के दर्शन किए हैं। शी सर्व्स एज अ बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर एंड प्रीचर एट ISKCON वृंदावन। एट द सेम टाइम इनकी जो शिक्षा गुरु हैं, राइट, जिनके संरक्षण में ये जिनकी निजी शिष्य हैं वो हैं देवी शक्ति माताजी। शी इज़ अ प्रभुपाद डिसाइपल एंड टू एड ऑन टू दैट, as far as His Holiness Devamrit Swami Maharaj is concerned, उनको जिन्होंने भक्त बनाया वो हैं देवी शक्ति माता जी। So she is serving under देवी शक्ति माता जी at ISKCON Vrindavan and at the same time she has successfully completed भक्ति शास्त्री कोर्स, राइट, जिसमें हमारे 4 मॉड्यूल होते हैं, 4 बुक्स होती हैं, सॉरी, भगवद गीता, नेक्टर ऑफ डिवोशन, नेक्टर ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन एंड श्री ईशोपनिषद। एंड शी हैज़ ऑल्सो कम्प्लीटेड भक्ति वैभव कोर्स। भक्ति शास्त्री के ऊपर एक कोर्स आता है भक्ति वैभव, जहाँ भागवतम के पहले 6 जो स्कंद हैं, है ना, यू आर एग्जामिन्ड एकेडमिकली ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द फर्स्ट 6 कैंटोस। तो वो भी कोर्स माता जी ने पूरा किया एंड शी इज़ परसुइंग फर्दर एकेडमिक, स्पिरिचुअल एकेडमिक कोर्सेज एज वेल। सो वी हैव अ वेरी staunch book distributor, we have a very staunch and severe yet very sincere साधक, राइट? सो हम एक बार ज़ोर से हरे कृष्णा महामंत्र का उच्चारण करके, राइट, हर ग्रेस कस्तूरिका माता जी का स्वागत और अभिनंदन करेंगे। हरे कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. हम सभी के पास एक गोल्डन अपॉर्चुनिटी है ना? अपनी कुर्सी की पेटी प्लीज़ बांध लें, राइट, एंड श्रवण करें. हरे कृष्णा, हरि बोल, प्रणाम. ओवर टू यू कस्तूरिका माता जी. थैंक यू.
Thank you, Prabhu. Can you hear me? You can hear me, right?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Okay. So you can hear me. Thank you. I'm so grateful to be on this platform. आपके साथ साथ मैं भी सीख रही हूँ. So yeah, I did have an opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness through university preaching. So it's very nice. And I'm not varished in any way. I'm also a learner, sadhaka, and I have so many shortcomings and faults. But, Bhakti is transforming our hearts. So that's what we want to have an experience. So I am very grateful to Anantakatha Prabhu for giving me this opportunity and putting some trust and putting me on the spotlight. So, yeah. So today we will be talking on Arcanaṁ. So I'll share my PPT. Okay. Are you able to see my PPT?
Yes, Mataji, perfectly.
Okay. Someone is waiting in the waiting room. Should I admit? Yeah, I did.
We will take care of that, Mataji. No worries.
Okay, perfect. So it's now clear, right? The PPT is clear. Okay, perfect. So before we go into the topic itself, we'll do a little Mangalacharan and then we'll go into the discussion. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So Archanam also means deity worship. So today is the day 5, and I haven't noticed that it's in the middle. Yeah, definitely. It's such a nice thing to be in the middle, and it also reminds of, something that is very precious is always in the middle, right? The Bhagavad Gita, if you see, Krishna is saying the Bhakti Yoga is in the middle. And if you see, in the in the middle 6 chapters of the Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is talking so much about himself. This is personalism. So this is the same thing that we will be reflecting in Archanam. We will become more personalist. We'll become more closer to Krishna. So मेरी हिंदी इतनी अच्छी नहीं है, but बीच-बीच में मैं कोशिश करूंगी हिंदी बात करने में भी. If anyone cannot understand, please, you can stop and you can question. So we'll start with one special prayer. Every day we recite Samsara Dhava, Guru Ashtakam in the morning at Mangalarti. But who is giving this qualification to us? So we'll recite. Shri Vigrahara Dhananityanana Shringaratan Mandiramanjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Shaniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer respectable obeisances onto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So, Abhijo, whatever the opportunity that we have to learn about Archanam, to engage in Archanam, is all because of the mercy of the spiritual master, right? It is not by our qualification or by our interest, because the spiritual master knows the value of engaging in the deity worship, he similarly allows us, he trains us in engaging in deity worship. So with that gratitude, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj says, gratitude is such a fertile soil. When we are grateful about the gifts that we receive, then the Bhakti creeper grows. So we will open the presentation with that gratitude to our spiritual master, that he's allowing us to sneak peek into the Archanam topic. So today we are going to see quite a few subtopics of what is Archanam. First of all, what is Archanam? And then how is this deity worship and then the 7 purposes of ISKCON are related? Because हम ये भी देखना है every day that what we are doing, how are we fitting into ISKCON? And is because, there will be questions, there will be challenges, we will face, right? Why we have to engage in these ritualistic activities. So for that, we have to understand why ISKCON has been established and how this deity worship is fitting into those 7 purposes. Then we will see Pancharatri Vidhi and Bhagavat Vidhi. So we'll go into that. And what is Archa Vigraha, the deity form. And then Archanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedana. So for each Anga, there is one personality who has perfected it. And all the Navaveda Bhakti has been perfected. The examples are many, but the Shastra primarily gives, that is Ambarish Maharaj. But for for the Archanam process is Prithu Maharaj. So we will see why he is the perfect example for Archanam and what are Grihastha's role in deity worship. And also what is this Pancharatra Vidhi actually entail? Is it just a ritualistic activity or something more or something deeper? Then what are the offenses that we needed to avoid? And also deity worship seeking it, then what is our personal application, right? Anything that we do, we want to have a personal application. So we will see how this deity worship is going to help us. And then how we can use deity worship as a preaching application, because we all are aspiring preachers, isn't it? We all want to serve Srila Prabhupada and we all want to expand ISKCON. So we need to know how we can utilize this as a preaching application. Then apparent controversies. There are some controversies which we might come across and we will discuss. And then what is the final conclusion? So there will be some slides with a lot of text. So don't be intimidated with it because those are, I have chosen because they were important to be presented. Actually, what I've realized, Archanam topic is like an ocean, and what I'm touching is like a minuscule on a drop. So it's not really so much, but yeah, if it is a little bit intimidating or overwhelming, you can stop and you can ask questions. So we will see what is Archanam. The definition of the Archanam is worshipping Lord Vishnu as one does in the temple. And the process of the temple worship is called Archanam. And what happens in Archanam, we are focused on giving comfort, happiness, and we are serving the Lord to please Him with our devotional service. So this deity worship, it allows us to engage all our, body, mind, and senses. And this is one of the 9 processes of the Bhakti. And in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami also states that this is also one of the 5 Pancha Angas, which is the most important. There are 64 Angas of the Bhakti, but out of the 64 Angas, The 5 potent forms is associating with devotees, chanting, deity worship, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and residing in Mathura, which means if we do all of these or any one of it will take us to the perfection. And what is perfection means? We are returning home back to Godhead. Now, Prithu Maharaj is listed as an example of perfection of Arcana. Now, Narada Pancharatra, this is a book, and it states that Rishikesha, Rishikesha, Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchati. So the devotional service that we perform should be, it is to please the senses of the Lord, right? If you remember from the Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, Krishna is addressed as Rishikesha, right? Because in that context, Arjuna was overwhelmed already and he didn't know. But then there, Srila Prabhupada is writing that, one has to serve the Lord by serving his senses. So how are we going to serve the senses of the Lord is all about Archana. Now the 7 purposes, here what I've done, I have written only the 7 purposes, but I will link with how each purpose is related to the deity worship. So first, to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to the society at large and to educate all people in techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So in this first purpose, we see Prabhupada wanted that spiritual knowledge has to be propagated at the society at a large scale, and he wants to correct the imbalances in the society. Now, deity worship is practical, and it is also a tangible science of Bhakti Yoga. We are addressing the Lord, feeding the Lord, honoring the Lord. So devotees are educated, and we are serving Krishna's senses. Now, we always hear this example, watering the root of the tree, right? When we water the root of the tree, we don't need to separately go and water the branches, the trunk, the leaves, and the fruits, right? So similarly, if the deity worship is carried out, all the imbalances in the society will be automatically be nullified. How? Because the center of the society will be Krishna-centered. When Krishna is worshipped, everyone else will be pleased. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, there's a famous sloka that if someone is engaged in bhakti, all the demigods, sages, rishis, everyone, even the people around us, they will be pacified. Because Krishna is passive, Krishna is served, right? So this way, we can actually bring a balance in the society, and also we can promote spiritual culture. Second, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna, God, as it is revealed in the, I have to say this. In the great scriptures of India, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, there is a lot of discussion about personalism, right? Deity worship is all about personalism. And we celebrate festivals, we do decorations, we carry out different rituals, and everything is strictly guided by the scriptures. We don't do anything out of our mental concoction, right? In that way also, we are fulfilling the second purpose of ISKCON. The third, to bring the members of the society together with each other and nearer to Krishna, the prime entity, thus developing the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of the quality of Godhead Krishna. Now, in the deity worship, we will see in the process, we do have Bhuta Shuddhi prayers and Atma Shuddhi prayers, which we will discuss as we move into the presentation. So this is to actually set up the mood that I am Krishna's part and parcel, right? You're my master, I'm your servant. So again, we are fulfilling the third purpose of ISKCON. Then 4, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement, the congregational chanting of the holy name of God, as revealed in the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, any ISKCON temple you go, what is the first thing that we will do? We will be doing Kirtan. We will be chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? And what are we offering prayers? Who are we offering, why are we glorifying? Who are we glorifying? It is Krishna again. And then if you see also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he instructed the 6 Goswamis to go to Vrindavan, he instructed them to establish the temples, the deity worship, and excavate the lost places, and also to write scriptures. So again, it is aligning to the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, step 5, to erect for the members and for the society at a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. So when we come to the holy dhams, we go to Vrindavan Dham, we go to Mayapur, we go to Puri Jagannath. To any holy dham, what is something that definitely we do? We do kirtan, we do shravan, we go and take darshan of the deities. We go take darshan of the different lila sthalis. We hear and chant the pastimes of the Lord. So again, we're fulfilling the 5th purpose. The 6th, to bring the members close together for the purpose of teaching a simple living of life. Now, I was in a dilemma. How does we fit this into the deity worship? Now, we see there's so many farm communities in ISKCON. We have Gitanagari in USA, Golokadham, and then there is a farm community in Hungary. There's farm community in Australia. There's so many farm communities. In Mumbai is the GEV, right? And all these farm communities, what is their center of their living? It's Krishna. Whether they grow the food, whether they take care of the cows, or whether, they are living on a very just land-based. It's everything again back to simple living. And even if you see in the Bhagavatam, especially in the 10th canto, Krishna and Balaram, they're teaching. Srila Prabhupada writes that, why Krishna and Balaram appeared in the Vaishya family. Krishna is the cowherd boy, simple village cowherd boy, right? And Balaram is carrying a plow. He's plowing the agriculture fields. So this is where actually, the simple living exists. If we are worshipping Krishna, then we will be automatically tending towards the simple living. Then the last purpose, the 7th, with a view towards achieving aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. So this is a universal platform to spread theism, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, which chapter is it? The 4 Sukritas who come to Krishna and 4 Dushkritas. Is it 7th chapter, isn't it? Yeah, 7th chapter. Where Prabhupada writes, today's world, 99% of the population is atheistic, right? So we need to tell them about Krishna. We have to tell them about, the deity worship, the importance of worshiping Krishna, the importance of that personalism, right? So again, we are fulfilling by performing Arcanaṁ, we are fitting into all the 7 purposes of ISKCON. Now, there are 2 parallel lines on which the strain of Bhakti goes. One is the Pancharatri Vidhi, and the second is Bhagavat Vidhi. Now, Pancharatri Vidhi is basically, it contains a lot of rules and regulations about deity worship, how do we follow different rituals. And the source of reference will be Narada Pancharatra, books like, and Hari Bhakti Vilas. Whereas Bhagavad Vidhi is following the 9 processes, emphasizing based on Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is the Yuga Dharma? Yuga Dharma is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila, there's a beautiful shloka, 7.73. Krishna mantra haite habe samsara mocham, Krishna nama haite pabe Krishnera charan. So if someone chants Krishna's name, they will be easily going out of this material existence. And just by Krishna's name, they will be able to achieve Krishna's lotus feet. So even if someone is engaged in deity worship or not, just by following the Bhagavad Vidhi, they will be able to go to back to Godhead. But we will see why this Pancharatric Vidhi or Arcanaṁ is still plays a very prominent role. We can say that, oh, I can chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra and then I can go back home, right? But we want to see what is this Pancharatric Vidhi is going to offer to us. Now, part of the Pancharatric Vidhi is that we get trained and we required initiations, formal Diksha process. That means we need to have a qualification to do the deity worship. But whereas the Bhagavad Vidhi, it's open to all. Before, after, anyone can chant. 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that, even someone is casually calling out Krishna's name or jokingly they're calling out Krishna's name, still it will have an after effect. They will have that effect of purification. Now, Pancharatric Vidhi is going to purify the mind. It helps us to develop discipline and can also lead to Raganuga if we are very invested in the Pancharatric Vidhi. Whereas the Bhagavad Vidhi eventually will take us to the spontaneous loving attraction to Krishna. Now, in Pancharatric Vidhi, we do Lord Narayana worship. That means the mood is on reverence. It's all about you are my master, I am your servant. But Bhagavad Vidhi is we approach Radha and Krishna and we follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. So there is a reference given, 424 to 45, 46. There, Srila Prabhupada talks about that in all ISKCON temples, when we do the deity worship, although we are worshipping Radha and Krishna, we are approaching the Lord in the mood of awe and reverence. We are not approaching in the mood of Radha and Krishna. Why? Because Bhagavad Vidhi doesn't need that formal worship. And also Lord Narayan worship, Lakshmi Narayan worship, we become conscious that I am your servant. Whereas in Radha and Krishna, especially when we take the residents of Vrindavan, Brajavasis, they don't have this on reverence towards Krishna. Krishna is someone's, conjugal lover, Krishna is someone's Sakha, Krishna is someone's son, Krishna is someone's master. So they have this very familiar mood. So that's why without proper training, Prabhupada didn't wanted us to go into that mood. So that's why in ISKCON temples, when we do deity worship, we do in the mood of on reverence, and we worship in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, worshipping Lakshmi Narayan. And Pancharatra Vidhi is especially recommended for Grihasthas. Whereas Bhagavad Vidhi, it's for everyone. Everyone can preach. Yare dekho dare dekho, Krishna Upadesh. Whomever you meet, you teach the science of Krishna. Now, Pancharatra Vidhi is emphasized. Prabhupada says that we need 2 things very important. One is the punctuality and the cleanliness. But whereas taking up to chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you see, people come from all kinds of backgrounds, whether they're meat eaters, they're engaged in illicit sex, or the gamblers or intoxicants, still they can take up to the process of the chanting. But Panchratri Vidhi is very strict. They have to be very clean. They have to be very punctual. Now, there is an example given. It's like a pot. Imagine there is a pot, and in the pot, there is a gold coin, right? And this gold coin is covered with ghee. Ghee, right? Now, when the ghee is liquid, you can see the gold coin, right? But when the ghee is solid, you cannot see the gold coin, isn't it? Yes. So Panchratri Vidhi is like comparing to the pot containing this gold coin, but in liquid state. That means we see Krishna and we think, oh wow, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His Aishwarya is displayed. And so that's why it creates this awe and reverence to us. But when the ghee is solidified, although back of the mind, they know Krishna might be very special. Krishna is, Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that is not the mood, Like you see the dealings of the Gopas, from the 10th canto. Like, when Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill and after he placed it down, everyone started to speak. Oh, maybe Krishna might be a demigod, maybe not a demigod. If Krishna is demigod, maybe I'm also a demigod. Because they're friends of Krishna. So they cannot just think that, Krishna can be Supreme Personality of Godhead. And everyone in the village of Vrindavan, they were coming to Nanda Maharaj and they were telling, oh, your son must be, Krishna, Lord Narayan. And they're telling to Mother Yashoda, maybe your Krishna is, Lord Vishnu himself. But Nanda Maharaj is like, no, he can't be. He always lies. He steals butter. He can never be God. You see? So it's something that they can, because their madhurya, their prem is covering up their Aishwarya. So they cannot approach Krishna in that awe and reverence. So that's why Bhagavat Vidhi is something, it comes in a very mature state. For sadhakas like us, we have to start on this Panchratri Vidhi, where we have training, in this understanding that, I am Krishna's servant, right? Then in Panchratri Vidhi, there are heavy purification, heavy purification when there are offenses, and if we commit those offenses, we have purification. But in Bhagavad Vidhi also, there is purification. Now, Prabhupada also says that temple worship will keep us sanctified. And when we preach, because we are sanctified, our hearts are getting cleansed, we become pure, and our preaching will also become very effective. So that's why Prabhupada says that this is two parallel lines on which the bhakti train goes. So one should not never think that, we can do one without another, it will become troublesome. Even, Narada Muni himself, he wrote this Narada Pancharatra, understanding that, we need that support of this Arcanaṁ process. Because in the age of the Kali, people are misguided, people are lazy, people are... What are the other symptoms of the Kali Yuga people? Anyone? Anyone? Misguided, short-lived. What are the other things? Easily quarrelsome, right? From the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada says that we need this Panchratri Vidhi so that we have that training support to move forward towards the Bhagavad Vidhi. Now, there are some other points that I found it very interesting. So I will read. Although deity worship is not essential, the material conditioning of most candidates for devotional service requires that they engage in this activity. When we consider their bodily and mental conditions, we find that the character of such candidates is impure and their minds are agitated. Therefore, to rectify this material conditioning, the great sage Narada and others have at different times recommended various kinds of regulations for deity worship. See, this is the mercy of the Acharyas. It is the mercy of the Guru Parampara that they give this support system for us. Next. In other words, the chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so powerful that it does not depend official initiation. But if one is initiated and engages in Pancharatri Vidhi, deity worship, his Krishna consciousness will awaken very soon, and his identification with the material world will be vanquished. The more one is freed from material identification, the more one can realize that the spirit soul is qualitatively as good as the supreme soul. At such a time, when one is situated on the absolute platform, one can understand that the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical. Then, if a devotee very strictly follows the methods of deity worship, he will naturally and quickly become a pure Vaishnava. So again and again, the emphasis is that although, our mainstream is Bhagavad Vidhi, we also have equal footing in the Pancharatri Vidhi. Now I want you, because I want it a bit interactive, so I want to see your famous Sri Radha Govinda Dev is also there. Jagannath Baldev Subhadra is also there. So I want to see, and I want you to pick up what are the different elements that the Lord has manifested. Anyone wants to try? How is Radha Govinda Dev manifested? In which form? Or which element, basically? There's no right or wrong, you can try. And it's good to try. Anyone? Please? Oh, you're so quiet, students.
Mataji, we have in chat section. Someone has
Okay.
written. Yeah.
Impatient, ignorance. Oh, yeah. As stone, as wood, as mineral like bronze, as shaligram stone, as hill. Very nice. Who is this from? Yeah, thank you. So Radha Govinda Dev is manifested, in the element of the stone. Whereas Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, they're manifested in the wood, Dharu Brahma. Then Gauranitai, you can see they're manifested in the element of metal. Then the Goswamis, they're worshipping the deity in their minds, right? And then you see the beautiful Radha Krishna painting. So the deity is manifested in the paintings. Then we see another deity in the earth. And then we see the Govardhan hill again in the stone. And then the Shaligram Shila, I put it for the jewels, like a deity can have a jewel form as well. Yep. Okay. So now we are stepping into the topic of what is Archa Vigraha. So Archa Vigraha, in order to be seen by the material senses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a favorable form. So what is Krishna doing here? Krishna is accepting different material elements so that we can actually perceive. The Pankajana Bhi, the Lord accepts the Acha Vigraha, his transcendental form in different elements, namely a form within the mind, a form made of wood, a form made of earth, a form made of metal, a form made of jewel, a form made of paint, a form drawn on sand. So all these forms, although they're material elements, Krishna can manifest. The material senses cannot perceive the spiritual nature of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord accepts the Acha Vigraha, which is apparently made of material elements like earth, wood, and stone, but actually there is no material contamination. Like Prabhupada gives this example of the electrician. The electrician is so expert, he can use the electricity either to create heat or cold, right? It's the same energy, but he can use according to the need. So similarly, the Lord can use the material nature and can make it spiritual. But why? Because this material nature also belongs to Krishna, right? If he's coming into this material element, it's no more material. It becomes spiritualized. Then we have when the form of the Lord is carved from wood, stone, or any other element, it is to be understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there. Even logically, we can understand that all material elements are expansions of the energy of the Lord. Since the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is non-different from his personal body, the Lord is always present as in energy, and he manifests himself on the account of adherent desire of a devotee. Since the Lord is supremely powerful, it is logical that he can manifest himself in his energy. Deity worship or the worship of the Salikram Shila is not ideal worship. The deity of the Lord in the house of a pure devotee can act exactly as he can in his original transcendental personality. Now here we have to understand two things. Why is the Lord coming in this material form? One, so that he is accessed, with our material to our material senses. Second, because this is the desire of the devotee that he manifests and he takes this form. Some more quotes. One second. Can anyone read? I cannot see my screen up there because, oh yeah, now I can see. The Acha Vigraha is an incarnation of the Lord in a form of appreciable by a devotee. Therefore, devotees engage in the temple in the service of the Lord as Acha Vigraha, a form made of sthula, material objects such as stone, metal, wood, jewels, or paint. All of these are called sthula or physical representations. Since the devotees follow the regulative principles of worship, even though the Lord is there in the physical form, he is non-different from his original spiritual form. Thus, the devotee gets the benefit of achieving the ultimate goal of life, that is to say, becoming always absorbed in the thought of the Lord. This incessant thought of the Lord, as prescribed in the Bhagavad Gita, makes one the topmost yogi. You remember the shloka from the Bhagavad Gita? Yoginam api sarvesham matgater antaratmanam. 647 Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is telling that someone who is worshipping me is actually the best of the yogis, right? Now, imagine that we have to imagine Krishna. It becomes very difficult for us, but the Lord is making it very easy. He's making it very easy for us to meditate upon. He's coming in his own original forms. Now you go to the Noida temple and you take darshan of Sri Radha Govind Dev. How beautifully they're decorated. They have lotus eyes and, the fingers are slim and you can see his curved, waist and how he holds the flute and how he carries the peacock feather. So for the sadhaka to meditate on the form is very, very easy. And if you see the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, and after the universal form, Krishna showed his universal form, Krishna showed his four-handed form, then Krishna came back to his Shyamasundar form. Then still at the beginning of the 12th chapter, Arjuna is asking, Krishna, what do you think? Impersonal worship is better or personal worship is better? Then Krishna is so kind, I mean, if someone, I give the whole explanation and then you will ask me this question, I will be like annoyed, But then here Krishna is like, no, you focus on the personal, form because it's easy to meditate upon. Even Krishna is giving the same reasoning that, for a sadhaka, it is easy to meditate upon. Why impersonalists have such a difficulty, to even attain moksha? Because they don't have any substance to meditate upon. And even if they have, we don't know what all they're meditating upon. Imagine that, we have to focus on the light. How much can you focus on the light? Then, continuing. The Achavigraha, the deity in the temple, is present for the same purpose. Out of his causeless mercy, the Supreme Personality of Godhead presents himself before us so that we can see him. Since we have no transcendental vision, we cannot see the spiritual Satchidananda Vigraha of the Lord. Therefore, out of his causeless mercy, he comes in the form we can see. We can only see material things like stone and wood. Therefore, he accepts the form of a stone and a wood, and thus accepts of a service in the temple. This is an exhibition of the Lord's causeless mercy. See, like, we want to see if someone really loves us, right? It is shown always in the actions, isn't it? So Krishna is also showing his love by manifesting himself in this deity form. We'll continue. The last quote, I think. In this connection, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur informs us that demigods worship the Supreme Lord in his various deity forms, Archavigraha, because except in the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be directly worshipped in person. In the material world, the Lord is always worshipped as Achavigraha, or a deity in the temple. There is no difference between the Achavigraha and the original person, and therefore those who are engaged in worshipping the deity in the temple in full opulence, even on this planet, should be understood to be directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead without a doubt. Now, you see, when you study the Srimad Bhagavatam, you go to the 5th canto, there's discussion of so many deepas, there's so many and there's so many demigods. And they all are also, even the demigods are engaging in the deity worship. And what is another famous and beautiful prayer that we every day sing to the Lord? Gaurarti, right? In the Gaurarti, what are we saying? That, Lord Brahma, Narada, they're coming and they're witnessing, the Arti that is taking place to Gaurnitai. If the demigods are ready to accept Achavigraha, I think we should also accept it, right? Now we will understand Achavigraha through an analogy here. Now you see, there are 4 pictures, right? There's clouds, there's river, there's groundwater, and there's tap water. Now, the water in the cloud is like Krishna in the spiritual world, that we don't have an access to at this point of time, because we are not pure enough and we are not spiritual enough. No, we are spiritual, but we don't have access because we are not pure enough. Then we can say that, I can, different incarnations. These are like rivers, according to the seasonal changes. Sometimes they flow, sometimes they don't flow. So it is also very difficult to worship different incarnations, like sometimes it's the Shvetavaraha that comes, sometimes it's the Raktavaraha, sometimes it's the Matsya, sometimes it's the Kurma. So we don't know, if that time, place, and circumstance, we will be there to worship these incarnations. Now, groundwater. What is groundwater? Paramatma in our hearts. Paramatma is sitting in our hearts. But we have to really dig deep, Bhagavad Gita says that, one who has controlled their mind, they're able to reach to super soul. So at this point of time, our minds are agitated, our minds are not controlled, and we really cannot, have an access. We don't have an access to the super soul. So we can't worship him either. But the deities are like, the water in the tap. Whenever you're thirsty, just open the tap water and drink. So the deities in the material world, they're coming, they're very accessible. It doesn't mean that, we go and give a list of things that they have to do. We are not making a business deal. But the very fact that they're very approachable, that's what it means, having water in the tap means they're very approachable. Once His Grace Purijan Prabhu said, In Vrindavan, if you have any problem, go to Krishna Balaram and stand before them and say, Krishna Balaram, dear sir, I have this problem. Please help me, right? We also go, we pray for different devotees, we pray for our spiritual strength, And when we go before the deities, we actually open our hearts. So this is the accessibility that we have because of the Achavigraha. So see how important that these Achavigrahas are playing in our life. Then another analogy by Srila Prabhupada. These Archa forms of the Lord may be considered idols by the atheist, but that does not matter for persons like Vidura or his many other servants. The forms of the Lord are mentioned here as Anantalinga. Such forms of the Lord has unlimited potency, the same as that the Lord himself. There is no difference between the potencies of the Archa or those of the personal forms of the Lord. Then to understand this, Srila Prabhupada, I'm sorry. Sorry, what happened? Sorry, just 1 second. I have it. So Prabhupada gives an example of the post box, The example of the post box and post office may be applied here. The little post boxes distributed all over the city have the same potency as the postal system in the general. The duty of that post office is to carry letters from one place to another. If one puts the letters in post boxes authorized by General Post Office, the function of carrying letters is performed without a doubt. Similarly, the Achamurti can also deliver the same unlimited potency of the Lord as when he is personally present. You're understanding what it means? Like the post office is organizing different mailboxes throughout the city. So that doesn't mean that you have to always run to the post office. If you see a mailbox, you can drop a letter. So similarly, Krishna himself, he's coming in the Archa form and he's giving that access, through these Archa Vigrahas. Are there any questions so far? Now we will see how Prithu Maharaj is an example of personification of Archana process. Right? Prithu Maharaj he was the emperor. He was not a king, he was an emperor. So what is so special about him? Maharaj Prithu completely dedicated himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Consequently, all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord, and he always thought of himself as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of everything. So, although Prithu Maharaj was given this that Shakti, ruling Shakti, to take care of the entire universe, because he was the emperor, but still, in the core of his consciousness, he always remembered that he is only and only he is the servant of the Lord. And Krishna is actually the proprietor. And then we see the similar thing in the case of Ambarish Maharaj, right? Ambarish Maharaj was the emperor, but he used all his senses in the deity worship. And whenever there was any problem, Ambarish Maharaj need not to do anything. The Sudarshan Chakra was just there and it used to take care of it. So here, Prithu Maharaj, he performed 99 yagnas, Ashwamedha yagnas. Anyone who does the 100 Ashwamedha yagnas, he can become the Indra. That is the benediction. But then, as usual, Indra was worried and tensed to lose his post. So he was coming in different ways and forms, in cheating ways, and he was always stealing the horses. Then Lord Vishnu appeared and he says, on the yagna field of Prithu Maharaj. And he says that no need for you to do 100 yagnas. You be satisfied with 99. If it does, like we are almost to the end of the goal, and if someone says that, oh, no, just compromise, don't worry about it, I'll give you the credit for it. But we will be like, no, but I want to have the 100 yajnas done, isn't it? This is usually our mentality. But Prithu is like, no, I will accept Lord Vishnu's order. And all his household, paraphernalia, everything is offered to Lord Vishnu. That's why he is the personification of Arcanaṁ process. In one's home or in a temple, the deity is considered the proprietor of everything, and everyone is considered deity's eternal servant. So this is the mood that Prithu Maharaj is establishing by the process of Arcanaṁ. Prithu Maharaj is Jivan Mukta. That means he is already liberated soul. Still, he acted as an eternal servant and never thought he was a proprietor, and he was always dependent on the will of the Supreme Person. Just like the past time I was telling that, although he was all right and Indra was wrong, and then he wanted to do these 100 yajnas, when Vishnu said that, no, you just be satisfied with 99, he said that, okay, What is important here? It's not about his personal agenda. It is about what pleases the Lord, right? Sometimes it comes with us, right? When it comes with our personal agenda, we always, at least for me, I can say, I always choose my personal agenda over anything. But Prithu was not like that. Other day, one of my friend was giving an example. I put these two pictures at the bottom of that. Sorry, just 1 second. Bottom of the screen. It's called, one man, he's trying to row. What do you call the rowing ones? It's called patwar, right? Patwar bolte hain na isko. Like those ones you're rowing. On the other hand, you see the boat is just going in the river. So sometimes our boats are tight, but we are trying to row it. हम नाव चला रहे हमारे पतवार से. We are thinking that everything is because of my execution of bhakti, right? But when you see, there are devotees, they don't have this rowing device. The patwar is not there with them, but they're sailing very smoothly. Why? Because they're moving on the will of the Supreme Lord. So this is again an important principle in our bhakti. I'm not there yet, okay? I don't want to falsely project that I'm there. But we are getting an understanding that, how important to accept the will of the Lord in our life, We have to learn to lose the ties of the boat, and then we have to depend on the Lord. So that's why Prithu is very, very special. And now, Grihasthas. If you see Srila Prabhupada's purports, like most of the purports, Prabhupada talks a lot of emphasis of Grihasthas engaging in deity worship. Of course, brahmacharis, sannyasis, and vanaprasthas are also engaged in deity worship. But the main agenda for those ashrams is preaching, spreading the message of Krishna consciousness. Whereas Grihasthas should be centered around the deity worship. And if you take Bhagavad Gita 13.8 to the 12, Srila Prabhupada says that there are 4 things that the family should do together. They have to chant together, they have to read together, they should accept the prasadam that is offered to the Lord together, and they have to engage in deity worship together. This makes the family stay together. Nice formula, right? How do you want the family to stay together? Just do 4 things, which we do anyways, right? But we are just including our family members. Grihastha devotees, however, are generally engaged in material activities. Therefore, if you don't take to deity worship, their falling down is positively assured. Deity worship means following the rules and regulations precisely. That will keep one steady in devotional service. That means that, the material nature is very intense, We are working outside, we are studying, we have to, we are doing businesses, we have to interact with so many people, and there's so many sense objects. Our minds are agitated, and all day we have to live in this concept of the body. We don't live in the concept that I am the servant of Krishna. We live in the concept that, I am MBA, I am a doctor, I am a woman, I am a man. We have so many designations that we live upon. And this can be it can sway us from the bhakti. So what does deity worship do? Deity worship protects. It's like an armor. Whenever we engage in deity worship, it is protecting us because it's bringing us, it is Krishna in the center, Krishna is the master, and the servant. Right? Nice protection. Any householder devotee circumstantially unable to worship the deity must at least see the deity worship. And in this way, he may achieve success also. The special purpose of the deity worship is to keep oneself always pure and clean. Grihastha devotees should be actual examples of cleanliness. Again, here Srila Prabhupada is making super easy. Suppose we don't have this opportunity or lifestyle to do deity worship at home. We have to attend the temple programs. Seeing deity worship is also doing deity worship. This is the ideal householder life. The husband and wife live together, and husband works very hard to secure paraphernalia for worshipping Lord Vishnu. The wife at home cooks a variety of foods for Lord Vishnu, and husband offers it to the deity. After that, the arati is performed and the prasadam is distributed amongst the family members and guests. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Advaita Acharya's home after taking sannyas, Advaita Acharya has made such a grand feast, and they offered it to Krishna, like mounds and mounds of rice and hundreds of different sabjis and different kinds of sweets and juices and everything. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased to see that such an elaborate deity worship was carried out by Advaita Acharya. Now, what does Pancharatra Vidhi entails? What exactly the temple deity worship? Now, whatever I'm going to talk, sorry, I fast. Whatever the deity worship that is in the temple that is carried out, it has 5 different steps. Okay, we'll go one by one. One is Agamanam. This is for the pujari. They are preparing themselves. They wake up early in the morning, they take bath, they put clothes, they wear clean clothes, and they're preparing to go to the deity worship. Second, Upadanam. They do backup services. They gather so many things for the worship. They collect the flowers and garlands and tulsi leaves and dresses and jewelries. So everything they're getting ready. Then third is yoga. They're connecting with the Lord. They recite Bhuta Shuddhi prayers and Atma Shuddhi prayers. Now, one of the prayer I would like to read out. Just one second. Oh, yeah. I am by nature the eternal servant of Krishna, but by my misfortune, due to being inimical towards you, from time immemorial, I've been identifying with this body and having wandering in the cycle of birth and death again and again in this material existence, being burnt by these threefold miseries. Now, as a result of some unimaginable good fortune, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I know that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, that I am an infinitesimal spiritual being, completely apart from the gross and subtle body. Now, by the order of my spiritual master, following in his footsteps, I have obtained the good fortune of being able to serve his lotus feet as well as the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Shyam Sundar. So here, this is, we are actually, preparing our consciousness that I'm actually, servant of Krishna. But somehow or the other, I am in this particular existence and going through these threefold miseries. But because of the good fortune given by spiritual master, I'm coming back to you. I'm engaging in this service. Then there is another famous prayer by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says that, Naham Vipro, I am not Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. I'm not Grihastha, Sannyasi, Brahmachari, or Vanaprastha. What am I? I am just Gopi Parata Dasa Kamalayo. Gopi Parata Kamalayo Dasa Dasanudas. I'm just the servant of the servant of the servant. So by reciting these prayers, again, you're like, connecting in a very deeper way. You're praying to Krishna. Then the fourth is actually the worship, the rituals that come. There are 16 items of worship they do. Asanam, Swagatam, Patya, Argya, Achamanam, Madhuparka, Punarachamanam, Snanam, Vastram, Upavitam, Gandham, Pushpam, Dupam, Deepam, Naivedjam, Namaskar. So out of these 16, some places you can do 12 also. And then at home, you can simplify it and keep it to 5. 5 would be Gandha, Pushpa, Deepa, Naivedya, and Gandha, Pushpa, Deepa, Dhupa, Naivedya. 5 things. Or if you don't have those ones also, you can stick to 3. Offer flowers, offer prasad, and offer deep. If you don't have that also, you can do only one thing. You can offer flowers. Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita 9:26, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yume Bhaktya Prayachati. Offer anything that you offer, even a fruit, flower, leaf, but with love and devotion. Krishna is accepting. Then the 5th is Swadhyaya. And part of the Pancharatra Vidhi, we also do Swadhyaya. So we do sadhana, we do study of the Shastras, we come to these sanghas, right? This is also part of the Pancharatra Vidhi. And we also preach. We go, we share with each other, we learn from each other. But Pancharatra Vidhi is a very strict procedure because we have to follow so many rules and regulations. So we don't compromise. Okay, today I don't want to give dupa in the temple. I'm talking about the temple standards, okay? Oh, I don't want to give Archamanam. I don't want to give Vastra. Why the Lord has to change dress every day? Why the Lord has to, brush his teeth? It's not like that. We cannot have mental concoctions. And 2 things Prabhupada always emphasized is punctuality and cleanliness, always. And Pujari Seva is like a razor's edge. If we are inattentive or negligent of any rules, we do get, purification. But if the deities are pleased, deities are so merciful. One other name of Krishna is Bhavagraha Janardhan. Krishna is very, very merciful, But if Krishna is pleased, we will advance very rapidly with the help of the deity worship. Okay. Then the list of offenses to be avoided. I just gave the references only, and I would you all go and read because it's becoming very voluminous. So I was trying to cut down. Sorry for that. So if you go to Nectar of Devotion, chapter 8, and also the Srimad Bhagavatam, the particular verse that we are reading, there's a list of 32 offenses. And many other Puranas are also talking about these offenses. Now, what is the remedy? Now, obviously, we want some remedies, right? So there's so many remedies even given in the 7.5, 23, 24 in the purport, is that if you commit any offenses, you have to read 1 chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That's nice, right? And also, they also recite a prayer, Mantrahinam Kriyahinam Bhaktihinam Janardana Yat Pujitam Maya Deva Paripurnam Tad Astume. So we are saying, oh my Lord Janardana, whatever little worship has been performed by me, although it is done without devotion, without proper mantras, without proper performance, please that become complete. So we are begging the Lord. Again, after the whole, the entire worship, we're coming back and linking to the Lord and saying that, I have shortcomings and I'm sure I made some mistakes, but please make it complete. We are almost to the closing. Sorry, I have to go a little over time. Hope that is okay. There are not so many more slides, few more. Now we have to see what is personal application. We always ask this question, right? What is in it for me? मुझे क्या मिलेगा deity worship करके, right? First of all, it will help us to come to the mode of goodness. Why? Because we have to be regulated. Punctuality. Like, if you have to be at the altar, like in the morning, 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, you have to be there at 5 o'clock. You can't say that, आज मेरी alarm बजी नहीं है, so I will go at 5:30. It doesn't work like that. The head pujari will say that, no problem, I have given the service to someone else. Right? So it will develop us to be regulated. If you have to wake up early, that means you have to go to bed early, right? And you have to be super clean. You can't be in unclean clothes. You have to take shower quite a few times. And also it helps us to develop knowledge. Like how? Because, the deity worship, we are doing swadhyaya, right? Swadhyaya means we are studying, so we will develop knowledge. And then we cannot eat too much or sleep too much, right? And it also helps us to do some austerities of the body. Now, what happens if you eat too much? We'll end up in indigestion, constipation, and we can even fart, which is an offense. Or if we sleep too much, we miss our services. So these are the austerities that we do, for the body. And it helps us to bring back our mind on Krishna. Manmana bhavat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. So, and then Krishna is saying that you can become the best of the yogis by just worshipping me. And it is also helps us to cleanse our heart. If you remember this pastime of the Gundicha Marjanam, Mahaprabhu is cleaning the whole Gundicha temple just before the Ratha Yatra so that, it will become a suitable place for Lord Jagannath to come. And then in that pastime, the emphasis of that pastime is the more we clean the temple, the more our hearts get cleansed. We become more clean. See, by engaging in deity worship, we will become clean. Why we have to become clean? Because our minds are impure. Our minds are always revolving around different sense objects. Isn't it true? Always. And the material world is especially dominated by the sex desire. It's running on the mode of passion. And Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, mode of passion means there is always this heightened quality of the sex desire. So we are very impure. And on top of it, we are in the Kali Yuga. So by engaging in deity worship, cleansing of the temple, our hearts get cleansed. And it also protects us from this sahaja mentality and impersonalism. I became a gopi, I became this, I became that. No, I'm just a Krishna's servant. I always remember that I'm Krishna's servant. And it also helps us to develop satisfaction, and it brings in Brahmanical culture. If you read this purport, 7.5.23.24, Prabhupada gives this example of Brahmana from the Pratishthanapur. And something that really struck me is this Brahmana. Prabhupada writes, he is poor, but he's not dissatisfied. This is very interesting. Usually we think that, poor means being dissatisfied. But here, because he's so absorbed in Krishna consciousness, his material situations didn't affect him, Even see for ourselves, why are we working like so intense hours? We are running in the world. We have to achieve this, we have to achieve that. Why? Because we want to gain somewhere some satisfaction, right? But here, because this Brahmana was completely invested in Krishna, he was satisfied. He was so poor that he couldn't gather any of the paraphernalia for the Lord's worship. But in the mind, he was so Krishna conscious. So he was doing all the puja in the mind. He's bringing the water from the Ganges in the golden pots. He's cleansing the temple. And one day it happened that he even cooked sweet rice. And then he was thinking, oh, maybe the sweet rice is so hot. Let me put my finger. And he put the finger and the finger actually burnt. And seeing this, Lord Vishnu in the Vaikuntha, he was laughing to himself. And Lakshmi Devi was asking, why are you laughing, Swami? Oh, just wait, I'll bring you one special devotee. So he sends the Vaikuntha Vimana. Now you see, this is because he's so contented, he's so invested in Krishna consciousness. None of the material conditions affected him. That doesn't mean that, we should not work, we should not go to school or college. It's not the point. The point is we are looking for satisfaction in material things. But if we are putting our hearts in Krishna, every other thing will be taken care of. At least we will be satisfied, whether we achieve those things or not. Then Kali Yuga minds are agitated, but with deity worship, mind will calm down. And it also helps us to connect to Shastra in a very deeper way. I'll give you one of my friends' example. Because I am not Brahman initiated and I don't know much about the deity worship. So I was, asking my friend, what all is included, because this Pancharatra 5 Vidhis, all that I was reading, I wanted to know more about it. So then I spoke to her. She's a very good friend. We studied Bhagavatam together. Now she was telling me this example. One day, one devotee, she serves as a pujari in the temple in South India. So one day, one devotee made such beautiful tulsi garlands, for the Krishna's like anklets, like, to put on to the anklets. So she was able to tie onto one of the anklet, but onto the other leg, she needed to, bend over and trying to tie. And she got this aroma from the tulsi leaves. And suddenly her mind took to this particular verse in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tasya nayanasya padaravinda kinjal kamishra tulasi makaranda vayu antargata sa vivarena chakra tesham sanchobha akshara jusam apichitta tanvo. Then she was thinking, oh, actually these four Kumaras, when they entered, Vaikuntha, they also smelled the aroma of the lotus feet, like aroma of the tulsi, which is offered on the lotus feet of the Lord. And what happened? Just by smelling that aroma, their minds have changed. They were staunch Brahmavadis. They are not very much attracted to the personal feature of the Lord. They were attracted to the impersonal feature of the Lord. But they were not offenders. It's just that they have this preference of liking the impersonal aspects of the Lord. But as soon as they smelt this aroma of the tulsi, their minds changed and they became bhaktas, personalist bhaktas, right? This is so nice. And then she was telling me that, Kasturika, I just, my mind went into this Shastra, into this particular verse, and I was thinking that, oh, this is how the Kumaras have this transformation, you see? So it also helps us to connect to the Shastra in a very, very deeper way. And there's another shloka in the third canto, when Krishna's ornaments are placed on Krishna, he becomes the ornament of the ornaments. Bhushana Bhushanangam. So when we see the Lord, the deities, when we also think that, oh, actually that anklet or that bracelet or that, choker or that, that was really nice. I think Krishna was giving more beauty to those ornaments, right? Again, we are going back and connecting to the Shastra in a very deeper way. Now we want to see what is preaching application. Now, preaching application is definitely we are defeating impersonalism, voidism, and also there's something called anthropomorphism. Even Srila Prabhupada talks about this in many, many purports. So I just wrote the definition because for me also, I didn't know what it means. So I was looking into it. So it's basically attribution of human traits, emotions, intentions, or behavior of human entities. So many people from other faiths can think that, this is just an ideal worship. We heard this, right? Like many people, they call it as ideal worship. Even I think before we stepped into ISKCON, Krishna consciousness, we used to call them ideals. We don't call them deities, right? But what is the difference between ideal and deity? Deities are where Krishna is personally manifested. Ideals are where, you're trying to self-impose, you know. So the deity forms, ideals are not deity forms. Deities are different. So these people think that, actually we are giving a form to God so that it helps us in our bhakti, But actually, Krishna doesn't have any form. It's like formlessness. But actually, it's wrong. Krishna comes in this form, right, to give us that access. If you remember 4.9 Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata. Tvaitva deham punarjanma naiti mam iti so Arjuna. There Krishna is telling, anyone who understands me and my pastimes, Krishna performs Naralila at different leelas. He's coming in his own original form. When he does that, he's manifesting. So these are not ideals. So this is not applicable to Krishna. So what are our evidences? Our strong evidences is Shabda Praman. Scriptures, the acharyas, the evidences from Sadhu Guru Shastra. And why do we need to know this? Because we live in the world where we interact with so many different kinds of people. And, subtly their ideologies rub upon us, whether we agree or not. We go to schools, we go to colleges, we go to workplaces. Their ideologies rub upon us. I can speak for myself. I had a very religious upbringing, but there was a point of time I was also questioning, in spite of that, because we don't have this knowledge. But again, Krishna, my spiritual master, Krishna, everyone protected me. So, I'm in a good place now. Again, deity worship also defeats impersonalism and voidism. Now, again, Krishna says, fix your mind on personal form. And Krishna says that only by undivided devotional service one can know Krishna. And he also says that I have this right. I don't manifest to foolish and unintelligent people. Why? Because I covered myself with internal potency. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada, why do we need to go to the temple and worship the deity? Right? God is everywhere. And then Srila Prabhupada countered back saying that if God is everywhere, why not in the deity? Right? So obviously you can come back to the deity, come back to the temple. Now there's also personal reciprocation of the deities. Like we hear different pastimes, the Sakshi Gopal. The deity comes and witnesses, right? Then Shri Chor Gopinath, the deity who actually steals the sweet rice for his devotee. And you see also Srila Prabhupada when he was in Dwarkadish in Los Angeles, the deity actually told him, I'll give you a better temple. That's nothing but, Sri Krishna Balaram temple in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So we can see that like how the deities are reciprocating. Now, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also describes Krishna as Akila Rasamrita Murti. So he has a form and it is a reservoir of pleasure and he is enjoying different mellows. That means he's supreme person. Now, how is that someone is a person, but they don't have a form, right? So again, when we are into a preaching moment, people might come from different faiths. So they might not be exposed to it. So we should give shastric evidences that, why deity worship is authorized, because not everyone can go on and on and on with sentiment, right? They need, so this is again, we have to tell them that, we are educated. We have this knowledge, we have this evidences, we have this Leela studies. So this is how we do preaching. And then some more quotes. Sorry, am I going overboard, like extra? Sorry for that. I can quickly read. The devotee, sorry. The devotee offers eatables in the forms of vegetable, fruits, leaves, and water to the Vigraha. And the Lord, being Bhaktavatsala, compassionate upon his devotees, accept these offerings. Atheists may think that the devotees are engaged in idol worship, but the fact is different. Janardana, the Supreme Lord, accepts the bhava, the attitude of the service. The neophyte devotee engaged in the worship of the Lord may not understand the value of such worship, but the Supreme Lord, being Bhaktavatsal, accepts his devotee and in due course of time takes us home. If a sincere devotee renders service to the Lord or to Achavigraha, the form of the Lord, all his activities prove successful because the Lord is present within the heart and understands his sincerity. Thus, if a devotee with all confidence goes on discharging the prescribed duties of devotional service, he will ultimately attain success. As enjoined in the Shastras, Acharya Vishnu Srila Dhir Gurushu Naram Mati. No one should treat the deity in the temple as a stone or metal, nor should one think that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being. One should strictly follow this Shastric injunction and worship the deity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without offenses. The spiritual master is the direct representative of the Lord, and no one should consider him as an ordinary human being. By avoiding offenses against the deity and the spiritual master, one can advance in spiritual life and in or Krishna consciousness. Now, I think this is the last but one that we are dealing with. Forgive me. Sorry for going overboard. So it looks like an apparent controversy. You know, in many, many places, Prabhupada says that the neophytes have to engage in deity worship. You know, it's the neophytes who have to be always engaged in deity worship. But I was thinking, if this is the standard of a neophyte, where do I exist? You know, like, you know, so many rules, regulations. So is it the deity worship is only for the neophytes? No. So what is addressed here? It is the neophyte mentality that is addressed here. You know, what is the neophyte mentality? That we consider only the Supreme Lord in the deity, but we don't know how to behave with the other devotees, right? We are lazy, or we are not careful in our worship, or we are, sorry, I have another point. Okay, anyways, I couldn't find. And also the neophyte mentality is that, you know, me and my mind, that's all. But that is the mentality that is offered. If someone is in this mentality, if they are engaged in deity worship, slowly there will be a purification. But deity worship is not just for the neophytes, it's for everyone, you know. Even the devotees who are in Madhyamadikari level, who are in, Uttamadikari level, who are on Raganoga platform, they all are engaging in deity worship. We'll see Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he's, sings in the beautiful song, Shuddha Bhakta Charanarina. You know, in that song, after performing Arati, he's actually saying that his entire home is transformed into Goloka Vrindavan, right? Or when Krishnadas Kaviraj, when he goes and he begs before Madan Mohan, you know, please give me permission to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then he says that, you know, Tumara, you're not the deity, but you are actually Vrajendra Nandan. You are actually, the son of Vrajendra Nandan. And you also see Goswamis. They establish so many deities. But at the same time, they are on a different platform too. And also the contemporary devotees, you know, like Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and also all other senior devotees that we see, how they are engaging in deity service. So deity worship, because we can find in many, many places, this controversy looks like it is coming. Like, you know, deity worship is for the neophytes, and Sankirtan is for very advanced people, you know, advanced devotees. But we have to see where Prabhupada said, what time, place, and circumstance, whom is he addressing to? What is he addressing actually? Is it the mentality? You know? So it is an apparent controversy. It's not actual controversy. So what is the final conclusion, the final destination? You see how Gopakumar is hugging Krishna. Now Gopakumar also had the Ishtadev, Madan Gopal. Then you will read this in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It's such a beautiful book, beautiful journey of Gopakumar. Very personalist. He's going through different planetary systems, and then he's finally coming to Goloka Vrindavan. Now, Krishna is tending the cows, he's doing his Gocharan Leela, and suddenly he sees that, oh, there is a new cowherd boy. Oh, that's my friend. He's been time immemorial in the material world. Now, finally, he came. So, Krishna is running towards this Gopakumar, and Gopakumar is running towards Krishna. They both hug together and they faint, Even if you see, I don't think so. If I see my friend after 10 years, I would hug and faint, right? But Krishna and Gopakumar, they're hugging each other and they faint. And again, they regain this consciousness. Again, they hug each other, they cry, and then they faint. And again, they get consciousness. And it happens several times, several times. And then finally Krishna said, I came to you in different ways. Sometimes this way, sometimes that way. I was always trying to interfere in your life, but you were pushing me aside. Finally, you made it. I'm happy, So what is the goal, of engaging in deity worship? To have this beautiful, loving relationship with Krishna. Why is our spiritual master taking all the pains, because he wants us to be united with Gopakumar. United like Gopakumar with Krishna. So our goal is clear, and we know we want to have that hug from Krishna. So if there are any questions or reflections or corrections, and I also sincerely apologize for really going overboard. I didn't realize it would take that time. So if there are any questions or comments or reflections, I'll be very happy to hear. Okay.
We have some questions in the chat section, Mataji.
Yes, I'm just going through it. Okay, 12.1, Arjuna Vacha. Oh yeah, thank you. Raise. Okay. I attended Mangalarati, Shringarati, and Guru Puja at the temple twice a week, and by the time I return home, it is around 8:30 a.m. On those days, how should I perform my deity worship at home? Yeah. Actually, deity worship at home has to be simple and practical also. That is something doable and practical, And I heard from many senior devotees also, the deities at home are like family members. So they can be a little bit, you can cut corners and you can be lenient, and that's okay. They understand. And obviously you have that reason why you are late. It's not that you are inattentive. And please remember, even we are afraid of the offenses. One beautiful quality of Krishna is Bhavagraha Janatan. He knows our intentions. He knows what is going on in our hearts and in our minds. So, yeah. Harshita, is the mood behind deity worship and ideal worship different? And if so, how to differentiate? Yeah, the deity worship is, we are conscious that Krishna is present in the deities, Achavigraha, and we are doing everything for his pleasure. Rishikena Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Uchyate. Ideal worship is basically, first of all, we don't trust that there is God existing in those forms. And it may be, we can do it out of superstitious, some rituals, and we can know it, like the deity worship is like more personal. We are connecting with the Lord. And even say, for example, there will be some days where we are not so much enthusiastic about the deity worship, which can happen, right? But the very fact that we have this instruction from the spiritual master to engage in the deity worship makes all the difference, right? And yeah, so that's my humble understanding. As someone who is completely new to deity worship, I would like to know how should I begin serving and worshipping the deities. I would be very grateful for your guidance. Honestly, I am not the right person also. Yeah, I think again, as I said, keep it simple. See what is your practical life is all about, how much time you can dedicate and what all you can do, it doesn't need to be elaborate, you know. And again, Prabhupada himself says that, if one cannot do deity worship at home, they can attend the deity programs at the temple, right? So I think my personal take would be how much time I have in a day to do the worship for the deities, and how simple or complex the standards should be according to it. Because once you set the standards, it's not really good that you always fluctuate. You have to stick it to it. I have friends who do very elaborate deity worship, very, very elaborate, but they do give a lot of time for it. But for me, I'm busy in my, services. So I keep it very simple. In the morning, I wake up, then I keep some fruit. That's all. In the lunch, I cook lunch for myself. So I for lunch. In the night, I snack. So I also give them snack. And I don't do this deep, all this. I don't do it. Yeah, and I don't know all these mantras. So my standard is something I do according to what I can manage. And it's not necessary that we have to have deities, as we have seen there are different ways to do deity worship. You can have a traveling folding altar, yeah, painting. Yeah, those are some ways. Any other questions or reflections? Thank you. And yeah, please do forgive me for really going overboard, and yeah, if it was very intense. But thank you so much for this opportunity. I did learn quite a few things in this process of coming before you and share with you. So I'm really grateful for this platform of opportunity. Thank you. So if there are no questions or comments, we can close for today.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you so much for your time. Uh, Thank you so much for your time. I know for a devotee who has regular services at ISKCON Vrindavan, it might also be getting late because you have to get up early in the morning, I suppose, right? But at the same time, yes, this was a very comprehensive presentation. It was full of shastric references, like slide in, slide out. So a very appropriate presentation that justifies the Shastra Sangha theme here, right? And so thank you so much, Mataji. आपने इतना समय निकाला, right?
No, thank you.
And you're a very senior Vaishnavi, and
No,
हम
please don't put this label to me. I'm not, I'm the most neophyte. But thank you for really giving this opportunity. It's really a nice opportunity to grow together. Thank you.
yes,
So
Mataji.
I'll let yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much, Mataji, for your time. And this was topic 5 of 9. सो अभी तक जो जर्नी चल रही है वो बहुत अच्छी चल रही है एंड द फ्लो मस्ट कंटिन्यू. सो टुमारो वील बी हैविंग सेशन ऑन द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक विच इज़ वंदनम, टॉपिक नंबर 6. सो इट विल बी टेकन बाय हिज ग्रेस बुद्धिमंता प्रभु, राइट? बुद्धिमंता प्रभु विल बी टेकिंग टुमारो सेशन. सो जो कल का सेशन होगा वो 7:30 बजे ही होगा, राइट, एट 7:30 PM. आप सभी प्लीज़ उपस्थित ज़रूर होइएगा. सो ऑन दैट नोट हम एक बार हरे कृष्णा महामंत्र कहकर कस्तूरिका माता का धन्यवाद करेंगे. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Thank you so much, Mataji, and thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. Thank you for your time. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Narupna.